Joy Reid recently had a guest on her show. His name is Peter Beinart, and they were discussing the crisis in Israel and Gaza, more so the genocide in Gaza. And I was really surprised because there's a number of things that he said here to Joy Reid on corporate media that I was like, oh boy, it's all coming out now. He's pointing fingers, and he was very vocal about this. The media's complicit actions with the pro-Israel narrative for quite some time. And then also he's going to point out something about the presidential candidates and when it comes to the presidential election this November and how some of the Muslim voters are feeling overall. So I want to give a shout out to Case Study QB for this clip here, for doing the damn thing, Case, always keeping us informed. Let's get into this.
Joined now by Peter Beinart, MSNBC political analyst, editor-at-large of Jewish Currents, and author of the upcoming book, Being Jewish After the Destruction of Gaza. Peter, my friend, it is good to see you. You have a piece up that is entitled, and it's in The Guardian, entitled, "The Mainstream Media Has Failed Us After 7 October." Please explain.
Yeah, so I was surprised that he came onto corporate media to complain about how bad corporate media was with October 7th. So I was very shocked that he was allowed to come onto the show, number one. But number two, this is important. The mainstream media and how they failed. So listen to what he has to say.
Yeah, my point was that after the horrifying attacks of October 7th, there were a group of people, particularly Palestinians with roots in Gaza, who made a series of predictions which have turned out to be stunningly prescient. That the war would not bring the hostages back, that Israel would not defeat Hamas, that the war would destroy Gaza, and that it would lead to a wider war. Unfortunately, those folks didn't get much access to the mainstream media. The mainstream media, a little bit unfortunately, like it did after 9/11, it tended to put, there were obviously honorable exceptions, but in general, you had a lot of people who were close to power in Washington who tended to get a big platform, but not people who really knew Gaza very well. And as
Pause. I want you to hear again what he just said, because he's basically on corporate media, bashing poor corporate media. He's telling them that they did a poor job. So listen again.
Yeah, my point was that after the horrifying attacks of October 7th, there were a group of people, particularly Palestinians with roots in Gaza, who made a series of predictions which have turned out to be stunningly prescient. That the war would not bring the hostages back, that Israel would not defeat Hamas, that the war would destroy Gaza.
That the war would not bring the hostages back. And you know who did talk about that? Independent media. Independent media like myself, Gray Zone, Katie Halper, Brianna Joy Gray, there's a number of us. We brought those voices on. Because corporate media was ignoring them, and they were right. It was very obvious, anyone who was paying attention, that the war itself was not going to bring the hostages back. So Peter is Jewish. Peter wrote this article that was published in The Guardian. So look at the look on Joy's face. Look at the look on her face. She's like, So if you look on the look on Joy's face, you can tell she's kind of like, oh, so he's basically telling me that we didn't do the right thing. Yeah, because you were a part of it, and not just MSNBC and not just that show. It was Fox News. It was CNN. It was all of corporate media. They had ignored those voices. We're talking about investigative journalists who were there, Palestinian journalists that were there, Palestinian Americans, etc. They ignored those voices, and that was on purpose. I told you about the article. I read the article right in front of you that was revealed from on The Intercept. The Intercept had exposed how CNN News had to run anything about October 7th and the war. They had to run that by the IDF in Israel. They had to run that by them. So I told you before, the corporate media was controlled. And a lot of these people, these commentators that you see, like Dana Bash and Wolf Blitzer, et cetera, Joy Reid, a lot of these people are just State Department mouthpieces. Now, with Joy Reid's show, she tends to go a little bit further than like Dana may go or Jake Tapper may go, but they're all just there to be mouthpieces for the State Department. So kudos to Peter for coming onto the show to tell them how they messed up.
And that it would lead to a wider war. Unfortunately, those folks didn't get much access to the mainstream media.
They didn't get much access to the mainstream media. He's talking to you, Joy. He's talking about you. He's talking about Dana Bash. He's talking about Jake Tapper. He's talking about, what's that dude's name on Fox News? That Jesse Waters. He's talking about all of you guys. He's not talking about us. He's not talking about independent media. He's talking about you guys. You guys purposely, for the longest time, you were ignoring not just Palestinian voices, but any voice, any, journalist that was talking about the other side of things. And you brought on IDF soldiers who had tormented kids, who was gleefully happy to kill children. They brought soldiers onto MSNBC who blatantly were lying to the people. A lot of people forget this. But when Mehdi Hasan was still on MSNBC, one of the last segments that he did was him interviewing the advisor to Prime Minister Netanyahu. And he was pointing out the number of lies that he told, including that video footage that they showed on MSNBC where there was an IDF soldier. His name was Jonathan. He's the guy that you see come on to Piers Morgan every now and then. That guy is a war criminal. And he was pointing at what was actually a calendar on the wall in the hospital. And he was saying, this is Hamas notes here and da-da-da. That was a calendar. And it was Mehdi Hasan who called that out when he was interviewing the advisor to Benjamin Netanyahu. And after that, Mehdi was gone. So yes, you guys need to take responsibility for what you have done.
The mainstream media, a little bit unfortunately, like it did after 9/11, it tended to put, there were obviously honorable exceptions, but in general, you had a lot of people who were close to power in Washington who tended to get a big platform, but not people who really knew Gaza very well. And as a result, I don't think we had the kind of public debate in the United States that would have served us well.
Yeah, and it seems that instead of debate, I feel like just from a journalistic point of view, if you just pull back, there's obviously the human tragedy. There are 100 people are still missing their people. There are 42,000 Palestinians dead. Every place you could possibly hide or run to is.
And that right there, still repeating a number that is incorrect. It is obviously, again, if you do the math, and if you would have spoken to any of these independent journalists, then you would have known that there's far more than 42,000. Just do the math. And I would tell you right now, if it was Israel that this happened to, do you think they would still keep that number under 50,000? No, they wouldn't. If anything, they probably would have exaggerated that number by now. So the math of the number of weapons that have been dropped and the density of Gaza, that number is higher. So this does not include the people who are still buried under the rubble. So she's still doing propaganda while he's calling out the fact that corporate media was doing propaganda.
It's been flattened. There's nowhere to live. There's just it's misery on all sides. And now the misery has spread to Lebanon. That's the human tragedy. But from a journalistic point of view, I feel like there was not an encouragement to examine. It's similar to 9/11, that we mustn't examine anything about this conflict other than one side is cartoonishly evil, one side is the good guy, and we just decide that. We don't even talk about, I don't know, we seem to not be able to even do the story and tell the story in a fulsome way. Do you feel that way?
Yeah.
That's your fault. It's your fault that you haven't done the story the way that it was supposed to be done.
Yes. Look, what Hamas did on October 7th was evil in that it targeted civilians in a really horrifying way. But if you want to fight against that violence, you can't do it effectively unless you understand that it's within a larger structure of the violence of oppression. And if you don't recognize that, put aside that morally you have an obligation. If you believe that all human life, all civilian life is precious, you have to believe that Palestinian life is precious too, which means the Palestinians deserve their freedom. But even strategically.
So let me pause here for a second. So he had to come onto corporate media and tell them to their face that you need to believe that Palestinian life is precious too. And you know what's crazy about this? He had to say it. He said it on a Black woman show. And I think that is just very telling, because it just tells you at the end of the day, they're all looking out for the status quo. They're just going to repeat those talking points that the status quo has and what the State Department says. And that's really what they do. So it's crazy that he had to come on and tell them to their face. And he also had to tell them that you need to understand about the occupation, that you have to understand that these people have been occupied. These people have been oppressed. And if you don't tell that part of the story and you just continue to say, which Kamala Harris is still doing and Donald Trump is doing, that this all started on October 7th. It didn't all start on October 7th. But if you continue to repeat that narrative, it is going to be very difficult for people who are not doing their research to know more. Where the media failed this time with this particular situation is that they underestimated younger people. They underestimated the youth. They underestimated the college students, Gen Z, and some of us millennials. And they didn't realize that a lot of us knew what Israel was doing for quite some time, that we did not just realize this on October 7th. I was talking about this 3 years ago. So that's what they underestimated as well.
If you don't understand the context in which this October 7th attack happened, and if you can't distinguish between understanding and justifying, which are completely different things, you're not going to have an effective strategy. And in a different way, that's what happened to the United States after 9/11. We didn't have a good strategy for dealing with Iraq and Afghanistan because we didn't do the right analysis about why, in fact, those attacks had happened.
Right. Well, I mean, the fact that the media played along with the idea that Iraq had anything to do with it was actually a problem.
But you're the media. But you're the media. And you guys played along with this narrative. You had a pro-Israel narrative for the longest time. And honestly, had it not been for the independent journalists that were there, that were capturing the footage, had it not been for Al Jazeera that was capturing a lot of that footage in Gaza and sharing that information on Twitter or X, whatever you guys want to call it these days, a lot of people would have been in the dark. A lot of people would have been in the dark. And the videos that we saw on TikTok, the racist videos coming out of Israel on TikTok. And they had Joy Reid, they had her, a Black woman, to sit here and to go along with that narrative. Now, Peter had to come onto the show to tell you, you messed up.
Problem too, but that's a bigger question about the way we treat Arabs and Muslims as one sort of mush and not really understanding the individual cultures. Let me play two quick sound bites. Here's Trump first.
Yeah, that is an understanding, Joy, because you were the one, and I talked about this recently, you were the one that conflated Arab American and Muslim as one thing, because Joy was trying to exaggerate a poll. It was the Arab American poll. It wasn't the Arab American / Muslim voter poll. Those were two different things. And Joy was doing that. She was conflating the two. Not all Arab Americans are Muslim. There are Arab Americans that are Christian. There are Arab Americans that are non-religious. Like, that's just like pointing to Black people and saying that we're all Christian. We're not. So she's kind of talking about herself there. Maybe Joy saw that clip.
Muslims as one sort of mush and not really understanding the individual cultures. Let me play two quick sound bites. Here's Trump first, and then I'm going to play Kamala Harris, both responding to this anniversary. Here's Trump.
I think they've shown a level of warfare that's been pretty amazing, whether you're for them or not for them. It's been amazing. Israel would be good. I think Israel has to do one thing. They have to get smart about Trump, because they don't back me. I did more for Israel than anybody. I did more for the Jewish people than anybody. And it's not a reciprocal, as I say.
So there's Donald Trump bragging about, I did more for Israel than anybody. Joe Biden was bragging about this recently, too. Joe Biden was saying that nobody has helped Israel more than me. Yeah, son, that's not a bragging point, fam. To both of you, that is not a bragging point. Are you tone deaf? Aye.
Must uphold the commitment to repair the world, an idea that has been passed on throughout generations of the Jewish people and across many faiths. And to that end, we must work to relieve the immense suffering of innocent Palestinians in Gaza who have experienced so much pain and loss over the year.
So do you notice what they did there? For both of those candidates, and again, this is them manufacturing consent. For both of those candidates, they didn't show the worst things that they said about this particular conflict. That statement there from Kamala Harris, that was from a while ago. They didn't show you what Kamala Harris said on the stage, the Democratic National Convention, that she unequivocally, supports Israel, that her support for Israel is unwavering. They didn't show you that part. And she said that more often than what she said right there when she read that piece of paper. They also didn't show you the worst of what Donald Trump has said when it comes to Israel, saying that, Kamala's like a Palestinian and, they're bad people and really bad people, and calling them names and stuff like that. So what is their angle here? You see how they're actually trying to show propaganda while they have Peter on there calling them out about the propaganda. Listen to this.
The Vice President Harris expressing empathy. She and her husband planted a pomegranate tree in memory of those who were lost on October 7th. Donald Trump said, hey, here's some good real estate here. And also it's about me and it's all about himself. Comment on that if you would like, but also just about whether going forward, you know what? Just comment on that if you'd like. We have 15.
So now Joy is trying to get him to decide whether or not he thinks Kamala or Donald Trump is the lesser of two evils. You see how she's trying to slide this in here? Listen to what Peter says.
Good for Kamala Harris for showing genuine empathy and talking about Palestinians as human beings. But people are not going to take you seriously in that rhetoric if you keep on providing unconditional weapons, the same weapons that are killing people in Gaza and killing people in Lebanon.
What did he say? Let's go back again, because I don't think this is what Joy expected him to say. Listen to him.
Pomegranate tree in memory of those who were lost on October 7th. Donald Trump said, hey, here's some good real estate here. And also it's about me and it's all about himself. Comment on that if you would like, but also just about whether going forward, you know what? Just comment on that if you'd like. We have 15 seconds.
Good for Kamala Harris for showing genuine empathy and talking about Palestinians as human beings. But people are not going to take you seriously in that rhetoric if you keep on providing unconditional weapons, the same weapons that are killing people in Gaza and killing people in Lebanon. If the words are going to mean something, they have to be followed by actions.
Peter Beinart, my friend, thank you so much. I always appreciate talking with you. And that is tonight's ReidOut.
Did you catch what he said there at the end? Well, that's nice that Kamala showed some empathy, but people are not going to take you seriously if you're still providing the weapons to the same people that you're saying like are killing those people. So she literally tried to do some type of propaganda there while he was there to call out the propaganda. Like, I really couldn't. And I've seen some things, but that one I really just couldn't get past. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. Gotta be kidding me. And there's another one, and I want to point this out. Shout out to Omar Badar, who I had him on the show also. Great guy. I want to show you something else that happened on corporate media too, where they're being called out. So it's not just her show. It was also on CNN. Watch this as well. So you're going to hear from some of the people that have been in Gaza. Listen to this.
This humanitarian crisis with the additional factor of Gaza is about to enter the winter, which often brings heavy rain to the region.
So she just referred to it as a humanitarian crisis. Okay. Listen to what the young woman on the left says.
Kate, in all honesty, a humanitarian crisis is what you deal with when you have a hurricane, what you deal with when you have an earthquake. You have an insult and a humanitarian response. This is my career. This is what I do for a living. Every single person who does this for a living will tell you the same thing. This is different. This is not a humanitarian crisis. Kate, and I'm going to say it very clearly for your viewers to hear, this is genocide. When 70% of the population that are killed are women and children, when the population is starved of food, of water, of medicine, when you have attacks, repeated attacks on all the hospitals, the clinics, the aid distribution sites, the humanitarian aid agencies that try to help. More UN workers have been killed in Gaza than in UN's history. When you have over 900 families that have been exterminated, that have been taken off of the civil registry, killed, when you have over 17,000 children that have lost one or both parents, when you have bakeries, aid distribution sites, churches, mosques, schools, and in the last 3 days, in the last 24 hours, in fact, a hospital today that was bombed, as you just reported, the hospital where I personally was working, and I can tell you, they are working every second of every day to try and sustain life when Israel's strategy and evidence on the ground suggests that they're doing the exact opposite. They were targeted today. There was a rehabilitation center that was targeted in the last 24 hours, and there was an orphanage that was targeted earlier this week. These are the types of places that are being targeted. And so it's really hard to hear it over and over and over again, framed in the way that it's being framed in the media, which frankly, Kate, is very misleading. It is very misleading.
So she's also calling out the media. She said it's very misleading. And Kate is there in the middle like, oh, misleading, huh?
365 days of this. Death tolls that are so far outdated. We have no idea how many people are killed, but I am genuinely afraid about what we're going to find out when the dust settles. History books will be written on this, and countries will have to reckon, media agencies will have to reckon with their major role in the genocide of an entire population and in the destruction of humanitarian law and rule of order.
She said the media agencies will also have to reckon with this. So that's CNN and MSNBC, two different networks, but guests calling them out about the propaganda and the lies that they've told about this war in order to satisfy the State Department. It's very unsettling, but these are the things that need to be said. So Peter has been on MSNBC before, so he'll probably be invited back on again. I think, I don't know. Not sure about the UN doctor though. Not sure about the UN doctor, but those are the things that need to be said. And had CNN and MSNBC and Fox News as well been doing their damn job, and had those commentators actually did reporting on the facts and not just repeating the talking points from the State Department, these things wouldn't have to be said.